Hey, everybody. Uh, Thanks for checking in on the training video for the CPM Gantt chart scheduling module in Contractor Foreman. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to start off with some basics of scheduling, and then as the video moves on, we'll get more and more into details. I do that with a number of the more complex modules that we have. So starting off here in the CPM Gantt chart schedule, we're going to cover one of the better ways to actually create a schedule in Contractor Foreman. And we're going to do that using our estimate. When you're in an estimate, we have our line items here in our estimate. And what we're going to do is we're going to let the system take these line items and use that to create our CPM Gantt chart schedule. Does that always work? No, maybe not matching on every job, but it's a lot easier to automatically bring in the majority of the line items that you need and then delete the ones you don't than it is from entering everything from scratch. So the way that we get Contractor Foreman to build that schedule for us is when we approve the estimate. So as you can see, I'm in bidding status here. Just going to go over and change that to approved. This is covered more in depth in the estimating video. And I'm going to go ahead and save it. And we'll get this pop-up. Do I want to create a new project? Absolutely. It's going to create financials, job cost reports, etc., simply by checking that box. Does some other things, but we're going to focus on create schedule from the estimate. So I'm going to check that box. Now I'm going to click OK. And it's going to take the system just a few minutes. It's doing a lot of work behind the scenes. So this does take a few seconds here, but it's now creating our project. And we're going to go set up our schedule. First step I'll show you here momentarily when it finishes updating everything and creating it all. We're going to go into our detail tab. And this is a very important step because you want to set your start date and your end date using the dates here. That transfers back over to the start and end date for your schedule. So we need to modify those start and end dates. Go ahead, jump in here, just set the date. Very simple. Just click the pencil icon, pick the date, and we're good to go. So I'm going to set this for, say, about a month out or something. Let's just go into June. Then we're going to come down here to project configuration. So when I expand project configuration, I can set my project color. Number of other things I can do. I'll scroll down a little bit here to make that a little easier to see. We can set our project color, and this is going to default our taskbar colors. So every project can have its own color. Each schedule can have its own color. So I just like to use kind of a green for mine. So I'll just grab a green. Now we've set that. And now as we jump back to our CPM Gantt chart schedule, I'm going to come over to projects. We'll go jump back here. So remodel Walker Residence. Come back here, go to projects. And remember, you do have a search bar up here. There it is down there. You notice I've got two projects here. Or two schedules that I can show. I could add multiple schedules into one view. And just a tip, because if I do that, this isn't Contractor Foreman doing this, it's a graphics card in your computer. The more schedules you have, the larger the schedules they are, the slower scheduling is going to work. So don't think that if you load up 4 or 5 large schedules into the module there, that's not Contractor Foreman running slow. It's your graphics card. A lot of people ask why it's running slow, and they've got 4 or 5 large projects there. So I want to get rid of that one. So I'm just looking at this one that we just created. And hit save. And now it's going to create that schedule for us. Now, as you can see, there's all of our line items from our estimate. brought everything over, just puts it in red first because we haven't calculated anything in the schedule. We have not linked any tasks. One of the first steps, and we'll get more into this a little later in the video, but you do need to link your tasks together. I'll do the top one here. You see the two circles at the end of that taskbar? I'm going to link down to grader here. So I'm going to put my cursor over that circle, press and hold on the mouse, drag that over to that till that circle fills, and boom, now our task is linked. Contractor Foreman will automatically calculate your critical path for you if you have auto scheduling on, which I do here. So I can click that to turn that off. Again, we're going to get more into those details as we go into the high critical path, show slack, etc. Let's just go over quickly the icons here. Here again is where I can pick one or more multiple projects. I can expand all and collapse all, and I'm going to show you that because we're going to add in some child tasks here later. I can undo, redo my action. I can zoom in or out. I can just zoom to fit. That's very handy when your schedule's going over a couple of months or my view is very much expanded and I want to see it all on one screen. That also helps for printing as well. I can show and hide critical path. There's the auto scheduling. When I have auto scheduling on as it is now, as I start linking my tasks, the scheduling engine in Contractor Foreman will calculate all your dates for you. Some people like to do that. It does work great. Some people are more used to doing it manually. So if I turn that off, then I can adjust my dates a lot easier on my own. Hide and show slack and hide baseline, which we'll cover later. Moving over here, there's, as in every module in Contractor Foreman, there's our training video icon. So every module has its own training video. You don't have to go over to support or help and search for certain video. They're all built in. And here is make a suggestion. We love your suggestions. We appreciate your great ideas and feedback. And so this does take a second to load, but there we go. If you have an idea that you'd like to see scheduling be able to do, just let us know there. We do review that on a regular basis. So now we're in the Gantt view here. I also have a list view. And so here I could expand that. It's collapsed. There it is in list view, and I can now easily export that. The other one, we have a calendar view. And so now we can look at everything in calendar view. I can look at it by day, week, and month. There's my print. There's the calendar view. Cycle through the days. Jump back to today. So let's now jump into a little bit more of the details in scheduling. And here I want to start with this action box. Well, actually, let's touch base on the save changes. Obviously, you want to save early, save often. The Contractor Foreman will auto save. When you perform a function, it regularly auto saves for you. But if you make a major change and you want to make sure that you save that, hit your save changes button. The actions box dropdown. A lot of things we can do here. We can send schedule notification, which we'll be covering in just a few minutes, but I can export to PDF, PNG, Excel, export to iCal, export to Microsoft Project. There's two things that I want to cover here because we have export to MS Project and import Microsoft Project. A lot of people are using Project. It's a great program, been around a long time. You don't have to even stop using it if you don't want to. You could do your scheduling in Project and export that file and then import it into Contractor Foreman. Kind of the exact same way with export to Microsoft Project. It's going to export an MPP file, and then you could load that into Microsoft Project. The other thing that's handy for export to Microsoft Project. You don't even have to be using Project. I can use this export to Microsoft Project. It'll just create a file. I can store it on my hard drive because maybe you do repetitive type work and you built a schedule that pretty much except for the start and end dates really does fit well for most of your projects. So just save that as a template. The other way you can do that is copy a schedule. So I can click copy schedule and I could copy it from and into another schedule. Very handy tool. Way to save a whole lot of work. We can change our work days and assign non-working days. So if I'm going to change my work days, this is for start and end days of your week. So you choose the one that fits best. And then the assign, let's scroll down a little bit for you. Assign non-working days. Here's where we can add by hitting the plus button. So Christmas, New Year's. So all these days that are just going to be non-working days, major holidays, whatever the case may be, you can add those in there and they will count that as a non-working day. And it'll spread your task across that as well. So that all said, the schedule will show up in numerous places within Contractor Foreman. So it's not just limited to this view. Because what I can do, I can come over and move a little toolbar out of the way in the calendar view. First, I'll just show you where this is. So our calendar, our schedule can show up on that calendar. Very handy tool because I can limit what projects are going to show up here. It'll show the taskbar. So this is a schedule, CPM Gantt chart schedule. And you see a bar like that, I can click on that. I can edit it a bit. And I can select day, week, and month, select what projects, because if you got 15 projects going on, that's going to overrun your calendar view. You won't be able to see anything. And the way to get a project schedule to show up in the calendar, you go to our drop down display options. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit and you can see there I have schedule check. So then I just have to pick my project or projects and my CPM Gantt chart will show up in calendar view. The other place that it's going to show up at is in a project. I'm in a project module here. Magic of editing. I jumped ahead for you, but I went into projects and client access. This is a client portal, client access. People call it by different names. And I'm just going to check schedule. Check or uncheck that box. And it's going to show up in the portal in a calendar view. Not all clients, especially residential, are going to understand a CPM Gantt chart schedule. So we just found that caused a little confusion. So we just had that show up as a calendar view, not the CPM Gantt chart view. So now that we're back at our CPM Gantt chart schedule, let's cover a few things on linking tasks, and then we'll get into more of the details of within each task, things like that in a bit. So moving more and more into the finer details. So I just cover that real quick. When you're linking your task, again, remember, you put your mouse over there, press and hold, drag it over to that one, and now we have those linked. Now, the other thing you can do, and I spread these tasks out here on purpose so I could just show you a little bit more and a little bit easier. But you see when I put my mouse over, just barely over the relationship line, I can double click that and I can add in a lead or a lag. If you're not familiar with lead or lag, briefly, an easy example is, let's say we had one task that was pour concrete and the next task was strip concrete forms. Obviously, we can't finish pouring concrete, turn around and strip forms. We'd have a little puddle of concrete. So you have to wait 4 or 5 days for that concrete to cure. So there I would type in 4 days. I hit save. And now it just added 4 days to that task. It shoved it out even farther. The other thing that I can do, I can put a negative number in there. So I'm going to go minus sign 1. And now you see how it automatically moved that back. Now that's created a constraint date. I can't really move that. And the CPM Gantt chart scheduling engine isn't going to let me eat up or overtake my lead and lag. So it's kind of locks that time frame in. However, I set that lead or lag. Now, the other thing that I can do, you can see what I had done when I linked these tasks. I went the finish of this task to the start of that task. That's called finish to start. I can do a start to start. So I'm going to go down to this task and I'm just going to drag straight down and know those are linked. You see they happen on a weekend, so it shoved it out. The gray bars, I'm glad it did that there. The gray bar is my weekend. I said weekend is non-working, so it didn't count it. So it just moved that task out. So I can do a finish to start. I can do a start to start. I could do a finish to finish. So I can drag that relationship line pretty much any way that I need to. And I could come down here and move that one over there. So I can really mix and match how I'm going to build my relationships between my tasks. As we now get into some more of those, the kind of the relationships between tasks and the finer kind of points of scheduling, I'm going to start off just by opening up a task box. So I'm going to go to whatever line item I want. I'll just give it a quick kind of highlight here, but we'll highlight that, then I'll double click. And it opens up our task box or dialog box, whatever you want to call it. So there's my task name. I can change that because remember that came over from my schedule. So maybe, or from my estimate, I'm sorry, came over from my estimate. So maybe it wasn't a perfect name, but at least I put it in there and I could just quickly change the name. I got a little spot for a description. And now I've got an assigned contractor. This is a very handy tool because as I'm putting my schedule together, I can put in here, I can do one or more. Typically, you just want to add one, but one contractor that's responsible or vendor that is responsible for this task. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hit contractors and I'll just say Donovan's Painting. And I can even assign an employee. So just assign that to Fred. Now Fred's going to have a new schedule task and he's going to get notified of that. I'll show you what we do with this shortly because we're going to move back to the action drop down for when we're updating our schedule. Now, here's a very handy tool as well, but want to make sure you use this properly because if I check this box as I'm building my schedule, every time that I make a change to this task, it's going to send an email over to the assigned contractor, in this case, Craig Donovan, that his task has been modified. You don't want to blow them up like that. So you want to build your schedule. Then if you want to do that, you can come back and check that box, but hold off on checking it. I can set my task type. I can set it to a task or to a milestone. A milestone is just that. It's a milestone. It's a point in time. Milestones do not have durations. They're just as you hit a milestone. Maybe it's the completion of all the concrete or all the site work or trim work or something. So it's just marking a milestone of the project. I'm going to move that back to task. I can set my progress here. How far along is that task? I can do that just by typing in the box, or if I want to scroll down and grab it, I could just type in we're 50% done with that. And then I could even reassign that task color. Remember, when we set this up in project and we set the date and the color, it's going to default to that green color I gave it. But maybe I want to come in and I want to say, okay, all my electricians are going to be brown. So every time I sign it, and it just makes it easier on your eyes, easier to organize things. Down here, we have what day do I want this to happen? Now, little trick here, what you want to do. Again, you want to let the scheduling system set the dates for you. Don't worry about setting the dates here. You can set a duration, absolutely. So if I say that's a 5-day long task, definitely set the duration, but leave the date as it is because as you build your relationship lines and move these tasks where they need to be moved to, it's going to automatically set that date for you. If you set this manually, very important note here. If I set that date manually, so I just picked another day, say next month there, so we're at the end of April. Again, that's going to make that a constrained task, meaning the schedule will not move it. no matter what happens before or after it, that date is never going to move. It's an assigned or constrained task. Down here, we have our baseline. So I can set my baseline. So as you get your schedule done, then that's kind of when you want to come back and use your baseline, because what day did I say this should happen? Because up here, this date is going to change. As you update your schedule, things get delayed, things get added to the schedule. This date is going to be constantly moving. That's why you don't want to set it. So don't set that date there. Let the schedule set it. It'll work just fine. But you want to be able to look back and say, well, here's what I said was going to happen, and then here's what actually happened. So it'll put a little mini bar down there for that date. Maybe show that to you, but let's go the 28th. Set that and set it to 1 day. And I can remove that later. We have a little remove taskbar there. Let's go ahead and save this, and we'll probably start moving into adding some tasks in just a moment. When we're adding tasks, there's really two, excuse me, there's really two types of tasks you can add. One would be a parent task, and another is going to be a child task. So I'll show you the difference between the two. If I'm going to add a task to this project, and it's going to be a parent task, and you'll see the difference in a moment. We're going to add a regular parent task, a main task. So in that case, I'm going to go to my top task where it's green. See how that's green over here? That's called a progress bar. I don't really modify that progress bar. It's going to move out automatically just to show overall progress there. So you see how that's at the end of what I've scheduled out so far. So that's the end of my progress bar. If I'm going to add a parent task, I'm going to click my plus sign there. I'm just going to leave that a new task so we can easily identify it. And I'll just leave this as is. I'm just going to add the task. I'm not going to fill anything out. No need for what we're doing here. And now it put that down at the very bottom. New task. Now, put it at the very bottom, and now I want to move that so I can grab my task and maybe move that up to a more appropriate spot. I guess I dropped it as I was moving it, but there we go. New task. There it is. Defaulted in a color, and I would set my relationship line. The other thing, I'm going to go back to the very top of the schedule here. And we're going to go ahead and add a child task. To do that, I'm going to use the plus buttons on the line of the existing parent task. So let's add something, let's do it under here for trenching. So I'm going to click that plus sign. Let's put new child task in there. See it a little bit better. Child task, and I'll just save it. There's our new child task. See how it's indented? Some people call those not a child task, but an indented task. I think in Microsoft Project, that's what they call them, indented task. Do you see what it did? It took trenching up here, and it turned that, I guess I got those colors of green a little bit close for you, but it turned that into a progress bar. And if I drag out, because I want that new task I added, you see how it's just dragging the progress bar with it. And so I can just add child tasks. Where that comes in handy, yeah, excuse me, is I might have a number of child tasks here, but I can then see I got the minus sign right there. So I click my minus sign and it rolled it up. So all I see is that little progress bar. Now I can hit my plus sign, and there I got my child task back. And let's say I'm going to update this. So remember, I can update the percentage complete here. We did that. But it's even easier because you don't always have to be dead on exact on these. See the little triangle there? And then my mouse turns into a double-sided arrow. I can just drag that across, and you see how it's changing the color of that. And so now it's showing that I'm certain percent done. Easiest way I can show that up here, see our column headers. So I'm going to right click in my column headers. I've got a few showing there, but I can show or hide my columns. Maybe you don't use WBS codes, so we can get rid of that. And maybe I don't want to add any more, so I could get rid of my plus signs, but you can set which columns are going to show up here. And you see that we set the duration on that task. And so it's set it to 49% complete. Like I say, you don't always need to be that exact. So maybe it was 50, but I could drag that over a little bit more to hit 50. It's a lot easier. Just zip down the line, updating that. Now, a bit ago, I had mentioned, let's go, I think I added that assigned contractor here, Craig Donovan, Donovan's Painting. I doubt Donovan's Painting does storm drain pipe, but I just threw anybody in there. And so let's say that that task was originally that long, and I'm doing my schedule update, and you see how everything moved with it. So as I move the tasks, the scheduling engine is automatically looking at my dates, my relationship lines, and it'll adjust that whole schedule for us. So now let's say that for whatever reason, this got delayed by a couple of days or something. So I just put my cursor at the end of that task, double-sided arrow again, and I'll just pull it out. So there's now the duration of that new task. But as you can see, it moved the tasks underneath it. And so I have other contractors and vendors that are responsible for these tasks. Well, once I update my schedule, now you have to notify everybody, right? So you got all these subs and vendors to let them know that, hey, I don't want that material delivered on Thursday. I need it delivered on Tuesday. Well, that's very time consuming task to do that. And so we've made it very easy. We're going to go back to our action box and we're going to hit send schedule notification. So as I click that, this little box comes into play and I can just hit assigned contractor, say I would hit send. Everybody who's in the assigned contractor in this case, if when I updated my schedule, if their task moved, they're going to immediately, without me doing any more work, they're going to get an email with the dates of their tasks that changed. So I don't have to get on the phone. I don't have to send 20 or something emails and hours and hours notifying everybody that their tasks changed. It's simply hit the send button. Everybody's going to get their email. Everybody's on the same page on my schedule. So it makes things a lot easier to manage your project that way. So let's jump back to the hide and show Slack. What that means is a very handy tool, and because it's so easy to see. What it's telling us what Slack means, and Slack are these hash marks. See, all these have hash marks because I don't have the whole schedule built out. These are all going to have it here. But what this is telling us is this is how long this task can go before it goes on the critical path method. If anything on the critical path date slips and gets delayed, it's going to delay the whole project. But if one of these gets delayed, it doesn't delay the whole project. But if I drag that out, which I have to, here we go. See, now it turned it red because I drug it out past my latest date in my schedule. So being able to see how much a task can be delayed or slip, people call it different names, how far the date on that can slip before it becomes critical is a very handy and useful tool. Sometimes I just got too much on my schedule. I don't need to see it all. So I'm just going to hit hide Slack. Now all my hash marks are gone away, but I want to come in, I want to manage my schedule, see how things are going. How tight are we on some of our timelines? I just show Slack again. And now I can see that install cherry base can slip one more day before it moves into critical phase. So I think that pretty well wraps up the scheduling video. And just remember that, it is best to start with an estimate or try to make that work because it saves you a lot of time and you may adjust your estimates a little bit to make the automation work a little bit better for you. And then remember, or be sure to go over into your projects and go to your details once you've created that. So you're going to jump into the details there. And set those important dates. Jump back there, didn't mean to scroll down on you. So start date and end date, and then go to project configuration and set your project color. And then you can jump back to your schedule. All your tasks are going to be there with a correct start and end date, and then simply just draw your relationship lines for how all these tasks need to take place and when, and just drag those out to where you need them. And Contractor Foreman will take care of the rest. Hope that helped, everybody. Thanks, and have a wonderful day.